Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today's guest is a talented Damien Ashley. He shares his journey through martial arts and acting and how they've shaped his resilience and identity. The discussion explores the intersection of his passions and personal struggles he faced along the way, emphasizing the importance of connection and authenticity in both love and performing arts. Damien shares his journey of returning to martial arts after a long healing process. He explores the emotional challenges he faced during his recovery from injuries. This conversation highlights the value of never giving up. Life presents us with challenges after challenges. It can sometimes seem like a constant battle, but when we look above the difficulty and project ourselves towards a free mindset, we can see past the suffering. Through acceptance and surrender, we remember love. Enjoy today's episode. It's filled with rawness of life and tons of inspired action. And remember to always turn towards love. May you always turn towards love. Hello, Damien. Welcome to Turn Towards Love.
Very much.
It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
So the first two questions I'm going to ask you, I ask all guests. And the first one is, what does love mean to you? I bet you didn't expect that one.
That's
related to the title of the podcast.
First, okay. It's a very broad question because it's a great question by percent. What does it mean to you? Because it is a very individual question, because a lot of people try to generalize love and say it's either this or either that. It's a choice, or it's a feeling. But for me, over the years, I've wrestled with what love actually is. Like now, if I was to say to you, how could I encompass what I think love is, whether it be the love I have for my partner, the love I have for my son, the love I have for my family, they're very different in a lot of aspects. So I think love is a connection. It's one that you can't see or truly understand, but you know it's a strong feeling that draws you towards someone through not just the general understanding and kinship you have with them, but also through something much deeper than that, whether it is a decision, whether it is an emotion. For me, love is just, it's not something you can openly choose. Like, I didn't have the choice to love my son. I just naturally loved my son when he was born. It wasn't like, okay, my son's here now, I choose to love him. But no, I naturally embraced that without even thinking about it. The moment he took his first breath, before he even came into this world, just thinking about him being here, that just evoked a whole, warmth inside me I never had before. And then when he was born, that just changed my whole perspective on, what it is to be a human being, and then what love actually kind of encompasses through what you provide for someone else, what you're willing to do for someone else. When it's with my partner, it's what you're willing to be open with, and how transparent you're willing to be. And because obviously we'll be 100% transparent. And for me, it's like you're just there, faults and all, and love is, for me, if anything else, it's a barrier remover, if that makes sense. Because it removes this need. If you truly love someone, then you shouldn't have to worry about what they see. You shouldn't have to worry about how you express yourself. As long as what you're expressing is obviously good-hearted and well-intentioned, then it's you being truly yourself. And especially in today's society, not a lot of people are able to take off that mask and be true to themselves, I think, sometimes. So I think true love just removes all of that, whether that's love for what you do, love for a person, a family member, a significant other, whatever that love is. It's showing your true self, if that makes sense.
That's so beautiful. Fully. And it's like that. It reminds me of the reverse of that. Like, it is love, and then we're peeling back those layers of like the ego or the conditioning or whatever's in front, and then we find that all that there is love.
Yeah.
It's that connection, exactly like you said. It's just, yeah, it's beautiful. I like to ask everyone, because it's so unique for everyone and how they've discovered it, So has there been a time in your life where you have turned towards love instead of fear? And what impact did that have on you?
Oh, a lot. Many times. Something before. I think initially, just going back to the first example I gave of my son,
Mm-hmm.
the nature of performing arts and acting, and the choice to do that route, knowing the instability that comes with it, and knowing that the very kind of like treacherous routes you have to go down and navigate through. Having a child when there is that instability, because there's not consistency in routine, there's not consistency in income, there's not consistency in what job's going to be there for next and the next, and saying, right, I'm going to bring a child into this. That was something that I initially avoided for a very, very long time. I mean, I didn't have, my son wasn't born until I turned 30. So I was very, very scared of having a child, just because of the nature of the. I always loved children, always wanted to be a father, but I wanted to make sure the environment was ready to bring them in. But then it got to a point where I was like, at the time when I was married, I just couldn't keep waiting. My wife at the time couldn't keep making me wait because she wanted to have children, and I wanted to as well, but in the right conditions. And she's like, right, fine, we'll go ahead and we'll do it. And I was, up until I remember seeing the sonogram, I was still panicked. Like, I was like, I'd be, Dad, I'll make this decision, because it wasn't something that wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like, oh, pregnant. It was like, right, we're agreeing now. We're going to go forth. We're going to commit to this, and we're going to go on this project together. And when I saw the first sonogram, that fear just completely disappeared, because it was like, and that little kind of extraordinarily weird visual you get on a sonogram, where they actually, you can make out where the head is and roughly where the belly is, stuff like that. You start to see the actual realism of that coming into being, and I was like, I'm going to be a father. And that's when the fear again just completely washed away, and the idea of, I can't wait to see him, came through, and that's where that love just overtook everything else. So the fear was just overtaken by that love and that motion.
Imagine how incredibly powerful that moment must have been for you. So we're going to begin with martial arts. We'll start there and see where it goes, because I find that, you know, with the podcast being turned towards love, and I wanted to cultivate that the spirit in life, and in everything that we do has our spirit and love. And it's like uncovering kind of the things that you were saying before, who we truly are in what we do, and in our authentic way, you know, in our own unique authentic way. And so I just wanted to start off with, what martial arts is it that you do, and what was your kind of story that led you into doing martial arts in the first place?
Okay, so I started off when I was 8 years old. The first martial art I ever did was
Oh,
karate. It was a style called Wada Ryu, which is one of the Japanese branches. Quite a few different branches from Japan of karate. One of the most famous ones being Kyokushinkai. But what initially led me to it, I guess, like with most kids, especially in the school I was in at the time, getting bullied and the rest of it. My dad, from the East End of London at the time, he grew up in Hackney, and it's Bethnal Green at a very young age. He had very, very early. So by the time he was, I think it was like 12 or 13, he'd gone into boxing, and he went through boxing. I only found out very, very recently he dabbled in Taekwondo, which he never ever told me. But I found out very recently. But he had this, not notoriety, but he was known for being a brawler when he was growing up. So my dad kind of dropped out of school at 15. He couldn't read, couldn't write, but he could take care of himself physically. And when he met my mum and moved to Essex, my dad was then exploring music because he loved to play drums, and he initially went on and was in a band for many, many years. But that passion for performance was always there with him. But the broader nature of my dad, he was always very independent. He would never back down from a fight, no matter what that was. It presented itself to him. And when I started getting bullied at school at a young age, it was like, right, we're going to put you in karate. And I was like, look, didn't know much about karate at the time, but I wanted to do something because, one, I liked martial arts and little bits I'd seen as a kid. But two, it's like, getting picked on at school, there's something you need right now to kind of build up your resilience and confidence being able to deal with a situation at the very least. So we started off with karate. I did that for 3 years, and we moved house and we changed styles. We found a new club. By the time I was 13, I was asked to come up, and in the new club I was in, asked to come up and start helping to teach the morning class on a Sunday. I wasn't a black belt or nothing at that point, but because of my previous club I've been in, I still had the dexterity and the ability to be able to perform kicks in a certain way that the teachers that were black belts like, well, please come and just help teach on Sunday morning classes. So I do that on Sunday mornings. And then when I got to college, I moved again, and I couldn't find a martial arts school near me. And I dabbled with the idea of going like, right, when I got to college, I know I'm going down the route of acting. I know performing arts is what I want to do. My audition, but I need something else to bridge that gap. I need something else that's going to get me through the door because, as you know yourself, when you come from a very, very working class background, saying, oh, I'm going to go into acting, performing arts, it's like, okay, good for you.
I know, right? Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. How are you going to support yourself? Well, I can sell a liver. No.
Yeah, exactly. It gets to that point sometimes.
How am I going to actually find myself? So when I got into college, I was like, right, I want to do something that incorporates my martial arts. I've been doing martial arts at that point for about 7 years, and I dabbled with dance as well. And when I got into college, I did a performing arts course, so BTEC in drama, and that all dance and singing. Singing wasn't really my forte, but I played drums as well, so I had natural musical ability, but I was never the best of singers. So I kind of pushed through with the acting and the dance, and yeah, singing kind of like it helped a little bit. But
kind of want you to sing right now.
Like your podcast viewers to die very quickly.
Darn it! I tried.
I think my window's quite thick. Should not break up, but all right. Also, I when I got to college, I was doing a performing arts course. I said I need something else to go along that's still martial arts orientated, but can help me move forward with acting. And I came across the idea of like, right, go the fight choreography route. And I'd been dabbling with choreographing dance in school with martial arts movements to create stories. And then when I got to college, I was like, right, I need something that I can do that still keeps me in the martial arts world. Because I stopped doing karate at that point for about a year after I fell out with my previous club. And I found Taekwondo. And I was going to Taekwondo after college, so I'd get the bus to college in the morning, Delta Grays, which is about an hour from where we lived. Then when I used to finish rehearsals at college, I get the bus back and I go to the Taekwondo school, which is around the corner from Basildon Hospital, which is was about 15 miles from where I lived with my parents. And not 15 miles, sorry, that's an exaggeration. 10 miles from where I lived there. So I'd get the bus back from college, go to Taekwondo at 7, then I used to walk home from Taekwondo. I normally get home about 9 in the evening. And dinner would be in the oven with a note from my mum, saying, we're all going to bed now, dinner's in the oven. But I would do that for 2 years. And then when I got to uni, moved to London, and again I had to change martial arts school. So I found there was a teacher in my first year called Kathy Yang, and she was the daughter of Dr. Yang, who was one of the, not the founders, but one of the forefront proponents of White Crane Kung Fu. So she was teaching Tai Chi and Kung Fu when I was at university, and I just had shoulder issues, so I dislocated my shoulder a few times through trying to learn gymnastics. Because my big idea was, right, if I'm going to do fight choreography, then I also need to have a gymnastics background. Problem was, I had no gymnastics whatsoever to speak of. I could do a forward roll and a backwards roll, but that's it. So he was cross-training in gymnastics. And he's like, you know what, don't worry about it. I'll teach you in the garden, as you do. And using zero brain cells at the time, we had a concrete garden.
Oh, no.
So because I was paying for Taekwondo, I had to pay for gymnastics as well. So he would teach me, I would teach him a bit of Taekwondo, and he'd teach me some gymnastics. Very good at like doing cartwheel flips and walking on his hands. He's got a lot of upper body strength. And he's teaching me all these movements. And then one day I'm walking on my hands and about 3 or 4 steps. And I'm naturally very lower heavy, so my legs are quite heavy. And I just dropped and my shoulder just came out.
Oh.
Got back up, my shoulder down here. And I'm like, what do I do? And I've thrown it up in the air and he's grabbed it, or just pull it. So he's pulled it and popped it back in. And then throughout university, this shoulder would just come out every other month. So
yeah,
heavy bag would drop out. If I got out of a chair during even just performance, like if I was doing improvisation, got out of a chair very quickly, it would drop out of place.
Really? That easily?
Lovely. Then fast forward to the end of uni, I'm still training in Kung Fu, but at this point, this has been nothing but a hindrance. So I had surgery. And then this is now 2007, I then found a North London Shaolin martial arts school, which was run by a teacher called Shifu Henglong. And he was a 34th generation, or is a 34th generation Shaolin monk. So there's a lot of these disciples that came from China at a point with the Shaolin Wall of Life show. Have you ever saw that before? But a lot of them branched out and opened their schools as the Shaolin Temple School in London. But he opened up his own school in Walthamstow. And I met him at a show called Seni, which takes place in London every year. And ironically, I went with a good friend of mine at the time, Joe Joyce. You might know him as the heavyweight boxer. Me and Joe went down to Seni and we met Shifu Henlong. He was there with Jet Li's teacher, Master Wu Bin.
Wow.
Seminar with him. And the intention was, I had the shoulder surgery, so I was feeling better. The intention was to go to China with Joby and to train in the Shaolin Monastery for 6 months. That was my main goal. So I'm like 21 at the time. And just before this happens, I then met what is now my ex-wife, but I met my wife. And Joby was all planning to go to China, so he shoots off to China, and I stayed here, and I got married. And fast forward for 10 years. During that period, I had hip surgery as well because I'd torn the ligaments in my hip. I had surgery for that, and then I was in and out of martial arts for a while. I wasn't training at all. I hadn't bought a gi for a long time. The last gi I bought, ironically enough, was when I was 21. And then I started working at a mixed martial arts gym in King's Cross. This is 2011. And it was called Open Kings. And whilst I'm there, I got to meet a plethora of what I can only say is amazing human beings. Just some of the greatest martial artists I've been around. Whether that was a case of I was Jude Samuel, who was one of the forefront proponents of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the country. He was one of Mauricio Gomez's first black belts. He was the head of the MMA scene for Bama. I met Pete Irving, who's from Newcastle, who is a stalwart of mixed martial arts. People, not just in the UK, but around Europe and globally as well, like in Brazil as well, know Pete very, very well. He's just an absolute ball of knowledge of martial arts. And then I also met people like Marcio Santos from Brazil, who's amazing capoeira. Shotzi's become a very good friend of mine. John Darrant, an ex-K1 fighter and boxer, Commonwealth champion. Again, just loads of amazing martial arts. And Mario Sorecki from Poland. He's a great Thai boxing instructor. And then from there, Gary Logan is an amazing boxing instructor, an ex-pro fighter. And from
wow.
Also front of house manager, so I was dealing with all the social media, and I was getting a lot of rehab at the time, and shoulder rehab for my hip. And for the 2.5 years that I worked there, they had between 7 to 12 martial arts classes on a day. I think I trained in martial arts there 5 times in the 2.5 years. It was the most amazing and the most depressing time martial arts wise I went through, because I was constantly in and out of hospital getting physiotherapy and rehab. I was getting and I was working sometimes 12-hour days at the gym to basically do the social media, to run the front of house, to operate the gym as well. And when I did train, I was so worried about my shoulder coming out of place again, my hip coming out of place again, that it just put up this wall, this barrier. I didn't want to do anything. So like everyone would go to me, "Oh, but you say you do martial arts, you're not coming to train." I was like, "Yeah, I'm a little bit worried." And then I was having physiotherapy at the gym every week, and going, "Oh, you have all this physiotherapy, but you don't train." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." So I'd come in the morning, train by myself. And then just before I finished working there, my rehab got to a point where I was like, right, I can start training again. I did a jiu-jitsu class. I did 2 of the boxing sessions. I was starting to feel good. I was even helping one of the guys train who wanted to have his first fight. I was doing pad work for him. And I had a rehab session first thing in the morning, and I cycled from where I lived in Stratford down to King's Cross and didn't warm up properly. And I was doing a deadlift as part of my physiotherapy, and I popped my L5 and 4 and 3 in my spine.
Oh, no.
I spent the next year in and out of hospital with issues with my back. And during that time, I was going back into acting because I'd saved up enough money through working at a gym to come back into acting. But right, I've got enough money now, I can start to venture back and start to audition again. And Jude introduced me to this lovely little guy from Liverpool called Mike Clark. And Jude messaged him and said, "This is Damien. He's a good friend of mine. He's also an actor. And if you don't put him in one of your," I can't say it verbatim, but along the lines of, "if you don't put him in one of your films, I won't put any of your fighters on Bama, because Mike was managing fighters at the time. So I wrote back, and Mike was like, oh yeah, of course, I have a look at him, send me a show reel and stuff. So I sent Mike my show reel, and that's how me and Mike met. And then Mike invited me down for what's the film? Not Revenue. But ironically, you were in the film where you were playing.
Love's Innocence Lost.
No, before that one.
Oh,
Club that
which...
we shot. I forget the name of it. We never got to finish it. I was wearing a jean jacket.
I loved that one.
You were playing one of the, I don't want to say the word harlot, but you were like one of the girls at the side of the gangster at the time.
Oh, it was so much fun though.
Was,
Just for anyone wants to know, Mike Clark is a director that we both know and we've both worked with, because we both do acting as well. So just letting that make that clear. Yes.
Yeah, so that was then, and then after that I was dabbling acting for a while, and I still wasn't doing any martial arts because I was in and out of hospital with my spine at that time. I still shadow box and I go through my katas and my techniques at home, and I do some weapons practice, but I wasn't training. So I was just doing, it was just rehab. And then I had an issue that happened after my son was born 2 years later, which is why I'm now divorced. And I slowly gave up with the idea of anything but physiotherapy. I was like, right, I'm not going to do martial arts for a while. It's just going to be physiotherapy. And then I need to get through the mental space that I was in. Went through a very, very dark time during that period. And the only thing that kind of kept me focused, well, two things was my son and my partner that I have now. They both were just nothing but incredibly, like, initially she was a friend of mine and she has now become my partner. But both her and my son were two things that kept me focused. And martial arts didn't disappear, but I didn't have the same draw to it because I was so worried about getting back into it and just getting hurt again. And I would still, again, like do little bits of training, but it was just more about just movement and getting the body moving. And then for years, I started to like move better, and I started to do some more boxing work. So I was working with Larry Obamiwo, who's become one of my best friends. He's an ex-heavyweight boxer as well. We do a podcast together. If anyone wants to know, it's been a while with the Gym Rat Pack, but me and Larry did some work together, and Larry helped me out a lot. And then I was like, right, okay, I can still do this. And then I met the start of this year. I saw an advert for a workshop called TACA, which was run by a man called Adrian Faulkner, sorry. And he was running his workshops for actors and dancers and gymnasts and martial artists that want to do screen action. And I was like, well, I dabbled in that for a long time when I was at college and uni, and that's something I wanted to do. So I thought, I know it's a long time since I've done it, but let me jump back into it again. So I went to the workshop in January, and the first one, Adrian saw me do some work on the pads. And you know, when you see them, they look at you, they like, you can see what they're thinking. And he saw me do some pads. He saw the others that some of them were dancing, but it wasn't the natural thing for them. Some of them were martial artists. And then by the second session, I turned up. I just remember him putting all his focus, going like, everyone should look at the way Damien's throwing a punch. I was like, I don't look at me. Because there's I mean, Adrian's very, very skilled martial art called Cardio Screamer. But he just kind of like started to put a little bit of shine on me. And I was like, I'm compared to the guys that you've got in here. Like, these guys are, again, amazingly talented in loads of different areas. And over the last few months, he's asked me to help out whenever I can in regards to with the workshops. And I did like a very basic kicking seminar. But it's given me the confidence again to go, you know what, I can still do this. And Taekwondo for the first time in 20 years on Wednesday, which is going to be my birthday present for myself. So I'm going to buy a gi this week and finally go back to training again, which I haven't done proper formal training again for 20 years. So it's going to be interesting.
Wow. What a story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Okay.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Fighting trophies and nothing like that. It's just, a bit of a different martial arts story, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you must have learned so much from those injuries, and also that kind of letting go of, I find that in life, it's like when you really want something, you were still in that zone, you were still where everyone was fighting. So it must have, what did you go through, like, mentally and emotionally in that time to kind of have to let go of the fact and accept where you are right now? Is that, yeah.
It was hard because it was like there'd be times where, and I'm trying not to be arrogant or anything like that, but there were times where I'd watch some of the fighters who were coming through the gym, and I'd watch some of their techniques, and I'd want to go in there and help them and critique it. But then in my mind, I'm like, who are you? You're not even training right now downstairs. So like, don't dare go down there and try and say, oh, just turn your hip a little bit this way, or when you dip, make sure that your head's a bit more to the right. It was one of those things where I didn't want to say, felt like it wasn't my place to. And there's a martial arts code as well. I mean, there's your code of conduct in regards to the respect of teacher and student and everything else. And it wasn't me trying to give notes to the teachers, but like just for some of the students and the fighters that were there, I'd want to sometimes help them out, and I just didn't feel I wasn't the right person to help them out because I wasn't training with them. So I never wanted to be the person that would come down and be like, "Hey, do this or do that," because it wasn't my place. So that was difficult sometimes, but not being was probably the biggest hurdle for me because, I mean, if you do like yourself with yoga and the rest of it, you know that when you do exercise, it's a natural kind of emotional benefit to you. It elicits a serotonin response that you get because you feel better after. And that, if you do it first thing in the morning, that carries throughout your day. It doesn't just get you ready for the day, but you've already jumped over that first hurdle by doing that thing in the morning. So
Yes.
that prepares you for the day. And not being able to train for a while like that was a big hindrance. I mean, even today, like when I went to Taka, we were doing some choreography in the last hour, and I was just throwing in like a half somersault roll after I got hit, and I tweaked the wrong way, and my back popped this morning. Luckily, it didn't go down my hips, but I thought I'd pop my back this morning. So I just kind of like sat out for a little bit. I was like, right, I'm not going to do this scene. You guys do this scene. I'm just going to sit and watch for a little bit. And then when we filmed it, I filled in for all the other guys, but I didn't want to do the hero part because I was like, there's a lot of movement in there right now, and I'm not ready for that. So I kind of had to sit out a little bit, which was hard. And Adrian kind of looked at me and said, like, you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just to rest a little bit. But I guess that's just, again, it's one of those things that you have to learn to deal with. And I manage it. So I have to compartmentalize the concern and the worry and go, right, this is where I am, like you say, and how do I still move forward, still doing this, but within the restrictions that I have, like how do I navigate those? And that's taken a while. But it's that whole thing of don't run before you walk. I've always tried to fly before I could crawl.
Right. That's great, though. It's a great mentality to have, especially to get you through those injuries. Like, they're super intense injuries. Like, took me a long time to try and heal my back, my lower lumbar back as well, from spondylosis.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So like I did the healing through yoga. It was such a whole year of real deep work on healing through yoga. And it was what I found helpful, what you think is part of martial arts as well, is that spiritual part of it. Where, like you were just saying, it's that mentality of like, that pulls you forward, it kind of magnetizes it. And propels you forward, rather than if we get stuck in that kind of, why is it not like this, in the negativity, in the suffering, in the pain, then we just kind of dwell in that, don't we? So it's yeah.
No, I mean, how did you find with the yoga? Was it something that you were doing already when you hurt your back, or something that you directed yourself towards as a way to help with the injury?
I've been doing yoga for years, and I wanted to become a yoga teacher, and it was such a strange time because of looking after my dad, caring for my dad. I picked up his wheelchair, and it was like an electric one, super heavy, and and it was only really tiny at the time, and so I was trying to pick it up, and I think it was the kind of last straw for my back. But what I realized in yoga was the build up to that, because I was like, I only picked it up like I would normally do, but it was the last straw, because of the emotional pain that I hadn't released. And so when I started to do the yoga, I released so much pain from the kind of like so like the hip area, and the kind of sacral area. So it was like all of that emotion was coming up during yoga, and it was so unexpected. And so I'm not one to cry and like in front of everyone, because I've had like grown up with three brothers and they're like super tough, and they would love everything that you were just saying. But yeah, so it's kind of had that mentality of pushing forward as well. But in that moment, I couldn't. So I knew what it feels like when everyone's doing these postures, and I couldn't even put my foot on the wall without crying, like literally my eyes out, because of the pain that I was in. And just having to take that step back and then look after myself and my heart. And so I went on kind of at first different journey. So it really reminds me of like what you've been on, that more of an internal growth, of where it forces you to look within. It forces you to take notice of your body, to take care of it, to love it, to appreciate it. Because I was very up there in my meditations. You know, I can do all the other stuff in the spiritual realm, but then when it come to the earth, like grounding in my body, I was like, whoa, I need to like pay attention here. And so it seems super similar.
Oh, that's I mean, I never knew obviously about your back, and I would never have guessed either. But because you've always been someone that's such a supple mover, so I would never have guessed that you'd had that. But no, it is like it's one of those things that it reminds you, one, you're a human, you're not a superhuman being. The moment you get injured, but it does force you to look within yourself, because it tests you about, okay, are you still looking to do this, and then how are you going to overcome those things? And it's wicked that you found yoga for that, because I mean, yoga is just not just a great practice physically, but spiritually as well, as you've managed to find yourself. And um, like yoga's always been something that I've never practiced. A lot of our practice, I've dipped in and out of it. Ironically, I taught a class to my kids. So during the week, I work at a school as a teacher, and we've got a class which is for our SEND need children. So on a Friday, for the last 2 weeks, I've been doing a little yoga session with them. And I'll just go in there. There's nothing kind of pre-prescribed. I'll just go for like some mountain poses, some downward dogs, and cat stretches and stuff like that. It's all very, very slow, because a lot of the focus is not just visual, but it's on obviously getting them to engage, but also in making sure that they are not just focused, but they are emotionally kind of ready. And there's also what we call, I'm going to turn a bit now, but there's a specific term when said need children, which is about just making sure that like they're not allowing themselves to have emotional spikes, and to kind of keep them at a certain level. And yoga is one of those things that when I take them out to play hockey, or I take them to play football for a PE lesson, their energy jumps up and down, and their focus is everywhere. But the moment you do yoga, for some reason, just like calming voice, setting a natural environment, and just going through stretches, they're just completely balanced.
Yeah.
But yeah, yoga is a great thing to do. So I'm very do yoga a lot, because I need to get into it a lot more.
Well, I can help you anytime. So wow, so much. I would love to talk about now, alongside your martial art route. So you've done acting, and you're such an incredible actor. And I have had just lucky to be able to have worked with you, and in different parts, even if like you know, just being in those environments as an actor, it's, I don't know, you don't need to do very much. Like I could be like in the background, and just being in an environment with loads of actors, it brings so much joy and laughter and fun. And it really, I don't know, I have such an excitement, and such like, yeah, this is why I'm here, right? This is what life's about. And so I wanted to know when that kind of sparked for you.
Oh, again, so this ironically enough goes back to my dad. So martial arts was something. Um, I touched on very briefly before how my dad got into music. So My dad picked up drums at 15, and he couldn't play. So my great granddad was, when he's in the military, he played in the marching band. So he went and fought in World War II, but he also played in the band when they were going out, and he played drums. And my dad picked it up, and he could naturally do four things at once, because there's this thing with playing drums where for me, most drummers are either naturally have it or they don't. You can be taught drums, but but drummers of a certain level, they naturally have that ability to do four different things at once. Because everyone looks at drummers and goes, "Oh, you're just bashing a skin or you're bashing a metal cymbal." So there's a lot more technique to that.
Yeah.
Dad initially went to a drum teacher, and my dad couldn't read, and the drum teacher gave him some sheet music, and he's like, "Okay, off you go." Like, I can't read sheet music, and he's like, "Okay, get behind the kit." My dad got behind the kit, and his first lesson, the teacher went to him, "Don't bother, you'll never be a drummer." And my dad, rather than listen to him, went home, and they had this three-story place my grandparents were renting, and I think it's 3 stories in Hackney. And my dad was up in the loft, and he's got a drum kit, and he would just play for hours and hours and hours to get it right. And then fast forward to his mid-20s, and he was performing up and down the country. He got interviewed on Channel 4. Blur supported him when Blur first started out. In fact, funny story, my dad played at Towngate Theatre in Basildon. And it was one of the last gigs he had with his band. And the drummer came out to watch my dad do a sound check. And my dad had this big, like 14, 15 piece kit. It was a Tama Rockstar or Tama Heartstar kit, I think it was. It had loads of Zildjian cymbals and Sabian cymbals. And it took him about an hour to set it up, because he had this huge mechanical arm set up. And then he was the only drummer that didn't get the technicians to mic it. He mic'd it himself. So he would spend all the time micing his every individual drum and dampening everything and making sure all the sounds and tones were right. And they all came out to watch my dad do a sound check. And the story goes that Damien Albarn came out, and this is when Blur first started out, they weren't big at the time. And they watched my dad do a sound check, and their drummer didn't get to do a sound check. So Damien Albarn went in the back and smashed up the room because he would get stuff. So that was, he toured up and down the UK, and just when they were about to actually recording studio to record the first album, myself and my brother were about 5 or 6 at the time, probably about 6 or 7 at the time. And my dad, during the day, was working as a mechanic, so he would do like 12, 14-hour shifts in cars, like fixing cars, and then he'd go and rehearse for 3 or 4 hours in the evening. And he was getting to the point where he said to the band, I remember this, it always upset me, but I remember he said to the band, "I can't do this anymore. I've got a family at home. We're touring. I'm working 14-hour shifts, 6 to 7 days a week, plus the rehearsals." And drummers have got one of the most physically demanding jobs. Like plug in an auxiliary cable, they throw it over. And the singer turns up, they plug in an auxiliary cable. A drummer turns up, spends an hour if he's got a big kit, setting it up, polishing it all down, and then taking it all down again. They're the last one to leave. And he was just physically exhausted, and he did it for years. And it got to the point where, again, they'd just been interviewed by Channel 4, and they're about to get signed, and he said, "Look, I can't do this anymore." And my dad walked away from it. He went into mechanics full time. But the first memory I have of watching him perform was at my uncle's wedding. And his band was there, and he invited me and my brother to get up on stage. And we got up, and it was just my uncle's wedding, so there's about 30, 40 people there. So it wasn't anything huge. But being on stage and seeing the way the music, the audience, and to see how music grabbed them in a way that no matter what was going on in their day, no matter how heavy the day may have been or what they may be going back to afterwards, that hour that the band were playing, they were just completely enveloped by that. They were wrapped around in the music, and that just took them somewhere different. And for that hour, they were there. Their worries were gone. Whatever they had to think about, the stress was gone, and they were enjoying that moment. And I hadn't seen any theatre on stage at that point. I hadn't been. I don't believe I've been to a theatre at that point. But it was my first kind of live performance, my introduction to live performance, and I was just taken by it. And then when I got to school, so I'm at 6, 7 times in junior school now, and we got to do the Christmas panto, and we did Sleeping Beauty. And this was like year 5, year 6. And I was like, I'm enjoying this. This is fun. And I was like, she was making people laugh and the rest of it. I was like, oh. And then I was finishing year 6, and I remember they're going to us like, "Do you know what you want to be when you grow up? When you're in year 6, you don't really know what you want to be." But I did. And I was like, "I've known for the last year so what I want to be." He's like, "What do you want to be?" I want to be an actor. He's like, "Okay." And you get that look of, okay, well, actor, okay. Who wants to be a lawyer? But My outcome, and I got to year seven school, and I remember like getting into secondary school. We moved again, so I was in a small junior school at the time. We moved again, big secondary school with like 1,200 kids, and I'm like, where's the stage? Because I know secondary schools got a stage. So I went into school and I had a stage in secondary school. I was like, wow, they've got lights, they've got a stage. What is this? Right. I don't care when maths is, I don't care when English is. I want to know where drama is. It's like, okay, drama is on a Thursday. Like, great, we're doing drama. And then I dived into it, and I knew from a young age, I was like, right, I have a natural affinity for this. Like, I don't care, like, balls and all what people think of me. Like, if they laugh at me, they don't like me, that's fine. I'll just be myself on stage. And that's a thing a lot of actors sometimes have a hang up about. That it's very much about worrying what people perceive of them. And I got through a stage where I learned that worrying about external validation is not something I wanted to spend my time with. And I went through a process of that between like 11 to 18, which always worried about what people think of you. But then I just kind of learned that through performance, you like me, you don't like me, I'm fine with that. You've got your reasons, you're a human being, that's cool. And that started to become like something that was infused with me, because I would just be able to, perform very openly and not try to worry too much. I mean, you worry about, can you do better? I'm always my very worst critic. But in regards to what people thought, I was like, if they enjoyed it, if they didn't, I got to work on my craft. So I started going through that kind of journey, if you like, from year 8, year 9, year 10. And I was a very, very studious student. So like no one in my family at that point had gone to uni. And when I got to year 10, it was like, right, you were predicting 12 A stars and all this. And now they've gone down to 5 A stars because you're spending too much time doing this martial arts outside of school. You're doing music, you're playing in the football team, you're doing drama. Where's your focus? I was like, well, acting and martial arts is my focus. Music I love because I started playing drums as well at the time. But like, I just want to do acting. And I started to lose a lot of my love for the other aspects of education. Like I used to love RE, but that fell away. I used to love languages. By year 10, that fell away. I love history, that started to fall away. And I just really zoned in on, I'm going to do martial arts. That's what I'm going to do. And fast forward to college, I auditioned for Palmer's College in Grays. And I didn't know you had to audition for colleges at the time. But the BTEC program they had, you had to audition for it. So I went to a workshop. It wasn't really a normal audition because you just did a workshop with 30 other kids, and they would just kind of see what skills you had and the rest of it. And I remember I needed to have 5 A to C's to get on the course. And the prerequisites were English and maths. And I finished on year 11. I remember opening up my letter on my grades, and my jaw just hit the floor because I had been predicted again like 12 A to C since I was in year 7. And I got to year 11 and I opened the letter and I just scraped 4.5. I was like, huh? Okay, what do I do? And I phoned the tutor, Maureen Griggs, who was the tutor at Palmer's College. I said, look, okay, I know you guys have offered me a place, it's conditional. I've got 4, I've barely got 5. And she's like, what are they in? I said, okay, so it's maths, it's English, I said it's drama, and the other one was 2 English, maths, and drama. So I had just those 4. And then I just done poorly in the rest of them. I was lost focus. And she's like, don't worry about it, you're in. I'm like, you sure? She's like, it's fine. We've got a spot for you. We've saved it for you, you're in. And I did my 2 years at Palmer's College. I did theatre studies as well as a separate A level. And whilst I was there, that's when I got to discover not the darker side of performing arts, but I just got to discover the cliqueiness of it. And martial arts and sport. I just noticed that a lot of actors, it's not a general thing because there are a lot of actors not like this, but for the most part, performing arts has a very, I'm not going to get banned by saying this, got a cliquey nature, but it can be very contentious and very, for want of a better term, bitchy. Not everyone's naturally themselves. And I was raised very, very differently. My dad never worked for anyone growing up, and he would just say it as it is. Like, it's very much, meat and potatoes, like, it's black and white.
Yeah.
Like, there are grey areas in life, but when it comes to people, you tell the truth, or and my dad was always like, I'm very direct. And I was raised that way, you tell the truth, and if you see something wrong, you speak up about it. And I got to find out very quickly when I was at college that there was a lot of people that would promise you the world, or a lot of people that were very nice to your face, but the moment you weren't in the room, that mask disappeared. And they could either talk very, very negatively. And I'd experience a lot of that where I would see people that I was very fond of in the room and they would be very, very loving to someone. And the moment that person left the room, they couldn't wait to start talking the biggest amount of garbage about them. And I didn't understand where the disconnect was. I'm like, how does that person coexist in that same body? And that threw me off of acting for a little while because I was like, I don't want to be in that environment. So I would go and spend my lunchtime with the sports students. I go and work out at lunchtime. I go and train, or I go and play on the football team with some of the guys at college. And I wouldn't hang about the drama guys at lunchtime because I'm like, right, I'll spend my study time with you guys, but I'm not. I want to hang out my social time because very uncomfortable nature of this falsity of being like very nice, but then, and that's just not who I am. And then I auditioned for uni. I was nearly got through to, so I auditioned for Central School of Speech and Drama, Rose Bruford, and two others. Mount View was one. I didn't go to Mount View in the end. But for want of a better term, I completely fluffed up my auditions. So I was 18 at the time. I'd never been to London. And I went up to Central School of Speech and Drama, which is this beautiful building. But when I went there at the time, this is back before there were mobile phones. I'm that old.
Oh, but, me too.
Yeah. Oh, one in here. Pull it out. I had an old brick phone, and I'm walking through London with this brick phone, trying to find Central School of Speech and Drama. And lo and behold, it was going under some maintenance work. So they had all these pipe work out the front of it and all this scaffolding. And I walked past it like 19 times, couldn't find it because there was no signage for it. Finally got told by a bypass on the street, like, oh, please can you tell me where Central School is? Right, it's right there, mate. I'm like, I've walked past it, but 19 times, thank you so much. Go running 5 minutes later my audition. I spent 15 minutes looking for it. So I walk in, I'm sweaty. I've got a big duffel coat on. It's winter time, but I've got a duffel coat on because I've been running around, it's all sweaty. I go running in there, this naive little 18-year-old. I go bang on the counter. Really, really sorry, I'm late for audition. Name's Damien Pettit. I'm here for this audition. And they go, oh, you do realise your audition was at 10 o'clock, sir? I was like, yeah, no, I know, it's 5 past. I'm really, really sorry. Corridor on your left, darling. Off you go. So panicking, walking down. I walk into the room. Literally, is where someone just stumbles into them and everyone looks at them. It was that entrance. I opened the door and I didn't stumble. Bag fell off, and I remember and someone's in the middle of their monologue, and I've just walked into the room. I'm like, I'll go sit down. And they're all looking at me slowly like this. And I'm like, you've already failed. Just don't even bother to do your monologue since you failed. And then I get up and I chose, I thought were two very good monologues to do. And one of them was a contemporary of Stephen Berkoff. And Stephen Berkoff is known for very controversial writing. And the scene I chose to do for my contemporary piece and a classic piece. And my classical was Shakespeare. I did Richard III. And my contemporary piece was a Stephen Berkoff piece. So I did my classical piece first. And for some reason, I don't know why my drama teacher never guided me in a different direction, but I was one of the only people to get an audition for Central. And she was like, when you do Richard III, remember, he had a deformity, so play that. So play him with the hump. Yeah. So physicality of it. That didn't go down very well with Central School of Speech and Drama. They don't like when you make Richard III like that. So that performance didn't go down very well. They're like, okay, next. So then I get my contemporary piece ready. I didn't know that Central School of Speech and Drama didn't like Stephen Berkoff. In fact, there was a small website which says, we advise you not to choose monologues written by Stephen Berkoff. And I choose a contemporary, right? So I start off with the monologue, and it was a piece about a guy who's a serial killer, and he buries women in his garden, and he uses the word C-U-N-T. And it starts off well. I've played it very dark and melancholic, and I'm using a lot of poise. I'm using a lot of moments of pause where I'm just looking at them with very eerie eyes, and I'm commanding the space, and I think it's going quite well, much better than the classical piece. And then unfortunately, the word C-U-N-T comes out, which is part of the actual dialogue in the script, and they just went, "Thank you, that'll be enough." And I just remember stopping, looking at me like, "Okay." I just got up and walked down, and I'm just like this the entire time. All the other auditionees are sat there looking at me like, like this. I was like, hey. So then they get us up, we walk around the theatre, And they take us into this beautiful, illustrious theatre at Central School of Speech and Drama. And we're all stood there, all looking, wow, this is really, really nice. And I'm thinking, right, well, they're taking us on a tour. Clearly, like, we might actually be given a position here. And then they walk in and they go, we'll take Charles and Maxine. Bye. And they walk off with those two students and they just leave you in the theatre. And you're like,
No.
okay, so we didn't get in then? Oh, walk out. So we just left. But I
It's brutal.
had to pay for your auditions back then. And it was,
Oh.
so I had my audition fee still in my pocket. And as I walked out, my brain was like, you haven't paid your audition fee. I looked out, I went, I'm not going to pay it either. I just walked out.
Exactly. Go. Wow.
There's a few other audition stories that I would bore you with, but yeah, Central was definitely my worst audition in my life ever. I wouldn't
Do you
repeat.
think, like, subconsciously you knew that you shouldn't be in this place, like this place isn't right?
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, ironically, you saying that. A few years later, when I was at the end of my time at Middlesex, or eventually went to train, one of the teachers there, he had taught at Central School, and he had nothing but negative words to say about it. It was like all of their students, and I don't know if this is the same for it now, so apologies to anyone that's been to Central School of Speech and Drama, but he said it's very much conveyor belt how they teach their students. It's very regimented. They don't allow them to be themselves, that they're taught in a certain way. And
Yeah.
and very reductive when it comes to performance, because you want to embrace what's that quality of you as an individual, because that creates the nuance of a performance, because you bring something new to it. If everyone has the same dialect coach and everyone speaks in the same way and delivers Shakespeare in the same tone and the same beats and rhythms, you're training them for a certain performance. You're not training them to be an actor. You're training them to be just, right, you're going to do Shakespeare at the Royal Shakespeare Company for the next 30 years and that's it.
Yeah.
You're able to, to cross over and do film, do in the round theatre or vaudeville theatre or different kinds of performance, whether it's interactive or not. And I just feel like you kind of really much put them in a small bubble they can't navigate out of. And my vocal coach at Middlesex was very, very strong in his opinion of what he didn't find well about Central School of Speech and Drama. So to cut a long story short, yeah, I'm glad I didn't go there. So
Wow. It's all for a reason.
yeah, definitely.
And you learnt a lot. To say the least. It's so, I think when things like happen, so many stories like that I have similar as well, where things happen and it's just so frustrating in the moment. You think, why didn't I get there on time? Why did this go wrong? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? And the more I've learned, it's just more like, because it's not meant to be, and what is meant to be will be kind of effortlessly, you'll be guided into it, and then everything will work out. I always know when something's not right because you just feel it. You just know within yourself, like intuition just screams at you. So I'm interested to know, what's the best acting acting character you've ever played?
Two. One was quite controversial. Three. If I was to take it three. One was quite controversial because of the aspects of the character himself. I did a play on my very final year of uni, and I got to play the lead in it, and it was this disgusting individual who was the leader of a drug den called Virgil, and it was a play that was written by a good friend of mine, Ashley Day, and co-written by another friend of mine, Eddie Rainbow, and they had initially these two different scripts. One was very kind of like Quentin Tarantino-esque, which was what Ashley wrote, about these two hitmen who basically take out the victims before the people that have been paid to kill, they take them out to the cemetery and they give them their last words, and the last words were big monologues before they died, and then the spirit would come back and then basically recount about their life and how they got to this point. And then Eddie's was this very much kind of like train spotting drug den story about a character who was a mute who was trying to survive against this very, very disgusting guy called Virgil, who was having this power play over the other people that lived within the den. And they amalgamated the scripts together. And I remember auditioning for it at the time. And for the audition, I just played it very Ray Winston-esque. Like I went really over the top, and I just made him very brash and very loud, but also just very antagonizing. And I just tried to invest as much of that fierce kind of wild energy into him because I wanted to make him, one, very controlling, but two, just very like disturbing to be around. And my house, who would become my housemate later on, Alvin Adequate, who's also gone on to be an actor, he's from Manchester. He auditioned for the same part and he played it completely different. He played it so subtly and he used his moments of poise and he used these moments of nuance where he didn't worry about playing the big moments. He allowed them to be still, and it was just, he created this element of fear through the smallest of gestures. And I remember watching his audition and I was like, that's what I should have done. And I got the part. And I said to him afterwards, I was like, I got the part. I don't think I should have got the part. I said, you should have got the part. But I never told him this until 4 or 5 years later because I didn't know how to tell him. And he ended up playing another part in the play. And I took a lot of what he did from the audition, in his audition, and I used aspects of that and I incorporated it. So I mixed what I had and incorporated those changes in tone and those changes in rhythm. And it just created this character that when it came to the final performance, there's a scene in the play where I'll try to paint a nicer picture of what it is, but it's a character who's a mute, who's played by a lovely actress called Laura. And I've not spoken to her before. She's a lovely person from uni. I've known her for a very, very long time, but she's Laura Simmer, great person. And she has to play a deaf mute, who carries this sheet that represents the child that she lost. And inside it, we put all this red ribbon. And there was a scene in the play where, to establish how much power he has, but also to show the child nastiness of this individual, he attacks her, actually. And when he finishes, he picks up the child and he just pulls out all the red ribbon and he walks around her and she's completely broken. When the play finished, it was the third night of running it. Her parents, didn't know, were sat in the front row. And the scene's very graphic. And she's a complete mess at the end of it. And I'm just like laughing over. My character luckily gets killed in the end, which is great. Like, yes, kill him off because he's an absolute asshole. But the parents came up to me at the end of the play and they're like, thank you so much. And I was like, and I'm nervous to meet them because I'm like, I didn't know they were coming. I'm like, you just saw what I did to your daughter on stage, right? Like, you sure you were saying it to me? Hey, thank you. Like, you created a space for her and we could tell it was performance, but you delivered it so well. And we were just taken by it. I was like, from them, because of all the performances I've done before with families have come, parents have come to see it. I never played a character like that. It was very different. I'd always played like either an anti-hero or the hero. I've never played like the villain, and definitely a villain to that degree that even I hated him when I finished doing the play. Like, I didn't want to be in that skin anymore. And when they said that to me, I was like, wow, okay, I did something right. And then another piece I did was a werewolf play, was one that I wrote and choreographed it, and I did a direction for it and other bits for it. And my brother came to see it and he filmed it, and I've got it on DVD down there. And it was a one-act play, solo performance. And I'd always wanted to experiment with the physical change of werewolves. That sounds a bit weird, but whenever I saw it on screen, I loved how, like, the original classics, whether it was The Howling or whether it was like, way back to the 40s and 50s movies, of how an actor would physically embody the change. I was like, I want to try and do that on stage. And I've always had an affinity for wolves. Like, my favorite animal is a dog, and I love wolves. And I wanted to explore that animalistic nature, but I also want to explore the physicalities of the change on stage. And I explore Lecoq, he was a French pioneer. He was originally an athlete who then took his athletic training and put it into dramatic arts. He did a lot with mask work. He called it Lecoq. It's called the Jacques Lecoq method, or Lecoq's method. And it was all to do with how, once you put on the mask, how can you then incorporate everything the character's going through the body, the stage. And I was like, I want to explore that. And that was my kind of like my thesis, if you like, in my third year, was looking at Jacques Lecoq's movement. And I also mixed it with Bruce Lee's approach to Jeet Kune Do, which is a very, very weird mix, but it got me my only first at uni. But I was mixing all that together. I want to do a performance incorporating that. And I came up with this piece based around a guy who'd just been bitten and he was going through a loss of memory. When he would go through the change, he had no idea what happened. So you would wake up in every scene the next morning. All you would hear was the lights would go off, there'd be a scream, and he'd wake up the next morning covered in blood and be getting interviewed by someone, had no idea what happened. And then the final scene was basically him begging the audience to put him out of his misery. He's like, I can't do this. I can't kill myself because I can't control myself. I put a gun to the audience. And I started going through the physical change, and we use a lot of strobe lighting and the rest of it. And then I used an amplified sound of a microphone that I'd hidden around here to create this echo of a howl and a wolf. And when the lights cut out, I then appeared at the back of them and jumped out, and they all screamed. And that moment where I was begging the audience to kill me, I was broken. He's in tears and he's crying. He's covered in blood. Like, please put me out of my misery. And the lights go off, and then they come back up, and at the back, I just jumped out of them, and they said they were petrified. I was like, it worked. From being in tears watching it to them being petrified straight up. And I love that I was able to listen. What theatre should do, you should be able to take people on a journey, but also elicit some kind of response from them. Mm-hmm. I suppose the other character, the third one, I don't want to say it's not something I've done with Mike, because I've enjoyed a lot of stuff I've done with Mike. I did want to finish off, was it Revenue? I can't remember the name of the title, it's so annoying now, but the very, very first film we did that we got to meet on, there was a bro, and he's going in search of a man that killed his partner. And I was exploring him at the time, and we got to film the first few days, and there were some ideas I had for him, and I really wanted to explore. And we never got to finish it, but it was a character that I would love to go back to. But if I was to say the third character that I'd love to do, it's a mix between the elements of The Stranger, which I don't know if you saw it or not, but The Stranger I did with Mike that I enjoyed, but then also a short film that I did a long time ago called 99% Certain, which was a 48-hour project, which was completely improvised. And there was a lot of kind of collaborative work I did with a cast at the time, which got me to try different things in terms of different approaches to acting. Because I've never been one for like the method. I've never been one for like staying in a character. But because we had a 48-hour window and it was writing the script, filming it, and editing it, she had to do the whole thing in 48 hours and then submit it to the BFI in South Bank. Right. And we did it at this lovely home in the South Coast that the parents owned. And then we shot on the cliffs, not too far. I can't remember where it was. It was not far from, I want to say Bournemouth, but somewhere around that area. And I just remember that 48 hours, even though I wasn't doing method, I was having to stay in the character I was creating at the time because we had that tight window. And I'm so used to when the director says cut, I go to having a laugh because I just can't stay in that emotional window. But because of that 48-hour time constraint, I was constantly having to try and stay within the character. And it was different. I enjoyed it. It's not something that I'd want to do regularly when I go back into acting eventually in the next few years, but it's a process I do enjoy. And that was the first time I got to really try it out. But it's not really my way of acting. Like I just, again, like I like using aspects of method, but I prefer more Stella Adler's technique. Like I like memory recall, but I like to be able, in the moment that you're not acting, I can put the character away. I put in I need to get back off where I don't need to do it anymore.
It's much healthier, isn't it? I think as well.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some method actors. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is a classic example. I mean, the man's won 2-3 Oscars now.
I mean, I love method acting. That's the way I work, to be honest.
How do you find it as an approach with method acting? Do you?
Yeah, I think with method acting, it's something at first I wasn't able to control or understand that's what was happening to me. But then I would realize that I could like tap in and out of that character. But when I would find myself like throughout my day, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking like the character, I'm acting like it. And especially if, like you say, about the physicality of one, like I played a character in America, which was on stage, full physicality was totally different. And I found it so hard and I used like Heath Ledger as Joker for that kind of inspiration, and I don't know what happened to me. And all my teachers was like, Rachel, where have you gone? You know, like even I didn't It's like it can get, you have to learn to have the awareness to be able to control it as well, I think. But it was quite sinister, like quite a lot of sinister. So it was, yeah, totally different as me as a human as well. And so when I would have to make an effort to switch on and off, because I think naturally I would, until it was like completely over. But when it was over, I was able to relax.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm always constantly needing to improve the character in some way, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I love the embodiment of a character. Just love fully embodying something totally different from what I am, because I think that we can find every part of any character in the world. We have it somewhere within us, so it's like exaggerating that part, isn't it? And having the opportunity with a character to be able to go into the depths of that and be worked on in that, it's something special. And then to deliver it to an audience who really appreciates it and is just like,
It's very, as an actor said before, but we're very, it's an embarrassment of riches when you do acting, because Denzel said this a few years ago. I mean, Denzel's one of my, for you, but for me, he's like one of my top tier actors. There's Denzel, and there's like Tom Hardy now and stuff like that. But Denzel being interviewed with Round Table, they've watched the Round Table when interviewing actors, and he said, you have to remind ourselves. He said, I'm not precious about it. He said, I don't buy into all that preciousness. He said that acting is a luxury. We get to do this, and that's something I've always adhered to. I'm like, for me, like, the job is auditioning. That's the job.
Yeah.
We're on set. That's not the job. And I've always found it painful. I mean, I don't know the situations, but I've always found it painful when I hear the stories of very, very successful actors that like show up 5 hours late, or show up drunk, or like, are very dictatorial about what their needs are on set, and are very off with, they're kind of like, they speak kind of offhandedly to, whether it be the camera operator, or whether it be the grip, or whether it be like, the makeup artist or whatnot, and it becomes all about them. I'm like, you're in a position right now that, okay, yeah, you're working for someone to a degree, but you're in a position right now where you're getting to explore the inner workings of someone else, and to discover that, to study that, and you're getting to play that, and all you've got to worry about is making sure you can do it when someone says action. That's it. Like, you turn up and you just deliver it. That's what acting is. Learn your lines, understand the character you're doing it, and just turn up and do it. And it's not. I mean, Morgan Freeman says you can either act or you can't, and I subscribe to that theory of thought as well. But I'm like, acting really isn't that. I don't want to say it's not difficult, but it's not a job. Like, a job can be arduous. A job is something you have to go and do, and it's something that it pays the bills, keeps you over your head. But when you actually get to act, for me, it's playtime. Not to say I treat it in a play. I treat it like, I'm not professional conduct. Although Mike would probably say different, but very much like, when I'm there, I'm very lucky to be there, and I hope Mike would say this as well. But like, when I was working on The Stranger, like, I'm carrying camera equipment, I'm doing this and doing that. I love to be immersed with whatever else is doing. But when I'm acting, it's like, I'm not precious about it. I'm going to give my best, and hopefully it turns out great on camera, and I do everything I can, but I'm just there to service a script, and I'm there to service the director, and then ultimately the audience. And like, as long as I do a good enough performance, that's all I have to worry about. Like, the rest of it is like, I'm lucky to be there. I'm lucky to have that opportunity. And as you say, to dive into the psychology of someone else, because we don't get to do that. You live in your own self. So then to get, or like, if you're playing a president, or if you're playing a refugee, or if you're playing a drug addict, or if you're playing a professional athlete, or if you're playing, a teacher, whatever the role is, or it could be an alien or a space astronaut, that is, however avant-garde or out of it is in terms of the nature of the script, you're getting to explore something that is not you, and you're getting to live within that for a while. And I love that. I love being able to explore, and then I love then telling that story to the audience. And I hope that during that time, like I was when I was 5 years old watching my dad's band, I hope that the audience can switch off for an hour or 2 hours and go on that ride with you. And that's what it is. So I get a little bit angsty when I hear these stories again about actors that just don't. They're either very precious about it or they're disrespectful in how they utilize the time. I just it rubs me the wrong way. But
I totally understand that.
but like Michael probably tell you though, like when I was on set, I can be a pain in the butt because in takes. Like when we were doing The Stranger, I was constantly like putting these little things around set all the time to do little pranks and stuff, and I was always working with a camera operator or having a joke with who was one of the film at the time, just because I like that camaraderie in a film set because such a collaborative experience. But then you have to remember that, especially with independent film, there's a very small amount of time and you only got a small amount of money. So you've got to try and, I remember Mike having a conversation where I sat down with Paul and Mike next day. I'm like, "You're doing a good job, but just like rein it in a little bit. Like, when we're getting cut, just like, just try and we're on a schedule." It's like, "Yep, I get you. I'm sorry." So I had to rein it in a little bit, but that's just me being, I guess, the little boy on set who's just having fun and being just completely immersed in it. And yeah.
Absolutely. It's yeah, and I think like, yeah, I don't know what it's like to have such a even with a huge budget, but I guess I've only done like small parts and extras. They're still quite. I always find they'll find a way to, get it done.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, just get it done and like, not waste any more time. But I think stage is a place what I find you can be so much more exploring all the different areas and spaces and movements, and you can like take up more space and be more like exaggerate the character a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of stage. I mean, again, this is something that Denzel said recently, and I subscribe to this. You don't learn to act on film; you learn to act on stage.
For sure.
That's where you hone your craft, and that's where you fully know how to articulate those words, not just from what you say, but how you physicalize it through your body. I mean, some of the best performances I've seen on stage, some of the most like heroic or traumatic performances I've seen on stage, it's never been through what they're saying. It's been through how they physicalized it, and there was that for this review of who was it? His name's got my head now. That's really bad. Usual Suspects actor, I can't think. Kevin Spacey.
Oh
So
yeah.
he did his first piece of stage because I can't remember if he was the at the time with the old Vic, if he was the actual head of the old Vic at the time or not. But when he first did his first bit of stage in London, one of the initial reviews was he's great from the neck up, but not so much down. And that's because we'd only really seen Spacey on film. And film is so much more nuanced because you're really zooming in on that emotion. So it can be like the coolest emotion you elicit from an eyebrow raise or from like, a slight jitter in your lips or a quiver that elicits so much to the audience through subtext. Yet on stage, you have to physicalize and play all that throughout your body.
Mm-hmm.
Heard of it for Spacey wasn't great, but then as he went on, the review started to change and like how he was on stage was different, and they really like lauded his performances after that. But I remember going to see like Ian McKellen on stage and seeing Patrick Stewart on stage, and I was in awe of them because they were giants to me, like growing up, like
Yeah.
them together, and they played like obviously Zach, Professor X and Magneto. But then when I saw them on stage, there was a play that I saw called In the Cut, where Ian McKellen played this patient, and then I saw Patrick Stewart in a piece called Two Actors, and it was him and Joshua Jackson. And they did this play, just the two of them, two-hander piece, and just seeing them both on stage in these two different performances, I was just mesmerized. And then I was lucky enough to see who else on stage? Michael Sheen, who I think is an amazing actor from Wales. Michael Sheen's work. So like
Uh-huh.
to see him on stage, he did Frost Nixon to do that film, which he did the film later on. But just seeing what he was able to do on stage and how he fully embodied the character, and it's so different from what you get when he does it on screen. because it's nuanced. But you learn so much on stage because you have to, one, you're performing the piece from its entirety from start to finish. So it's a
Yeah.
lot, and you are fully immersed. Where film, there's so much stop and start and so much waiting around, and you may only get one take that day, and there's not much rehearsal. Whereas with theatre, you can spend 6 months rehearsing a play, and then it's ready to go, and then you're then performing it night after night for, like, it could be a 2-week run, or you could be running for 6 months, but you're in that play and you're in that energy for that entire hour and a half or 2 hours. Now, I mean, if it's a 3-act play, if you're in it for like 2.5 hours, and you're just fully there, and whatever happens in front of that audience, if a mistake happens, you have to go with it. If you drop a line, you have to go. And it's a completely different beast. And
Isn't it?
I love it.
I do too. I like how they both kind of balance themselves out as well, because in stage I always find, oh my gosh, I feel a bit more anxiety or adrenaline, which I use, and to improvise, I love improvising, especially when I feel super confident with something. But the they don't really have that worry at all in film and TV. It's just kind of like, okay, you can cut that. Okay, you can take it again and stuff. So you've got that easygoing nature of that bit. But yeah, so they both kind of balance themselves out, I think, in some ways. But it's good to go for both. I was wondering, have you ever been to Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland?
Spectator, so I got as an audience member. I've never performed there. It was never something that jumped to do, but I've definitely been there as an audience member. I enjoyed it as an audience member.
So good. I really loved going, and I'd love to do a play there somewhere. I think it'd be fun.
Because everyone has gone has just said how it's just a great experience.
It's so good. Okay, I really want to. I think because you can do like one person, but I think I'd want a team. Anyway, we've talked so nice thinking about your life and your journey, how you've always had that super creative outlet with your music, with acting, with martial arts, and the kind of spiritual aspects of all of them. And so every time something like steers us a different way, I feel like, do you feel like you always end up kind of where you are supposed to be?
Yeah, there's more often than not. I definitely subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Because I've spent, not through wanting to, but I've spent the last 20 years probably 5 to 6% of my time has been spent doing what I love to do. The
Yeah.
other 94% of it has been spent doing stuff I've had to do. So I've had a myriad of jobs to work around it, but I've always managed to find a way to navigate back to it. And I think in part it's just, one, letting go of it, but two, just finding a moment, whether it's within the day or if you're lucky within the week, where you can still tap into it and pursue it in some way, whether that's doing a workshop, whether that's reading a piece of material, whether that's just a small amount of training you can do, which still keeps you in that environment. It's difficult, but there has definitely been something that's always pulled me back to it. I've never been, even if I've wanted to, which I can't recall a time that I have, but even if I had wanted to, I don't think I'd be able to pull myself away from it, because it's always been kind of etched in the core of who I am. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Fully. And is there a message to kind of tie everything together? Is there a message that you would like to share to the audience about what you have learned through your entire journey of martial arts, of acting, of music, of all the injuries and all the things that have happened? Is there any like huge message that you can give to people who may be going through something similar?
What I would say, I suppose the main focus is something I mentioned before. Don't worry about external validation. Never see. As long as you're true to who you are, and you have to have a certain ability. I mean, there's no, don't say that you can do something that's just not naturally within you. But if there's something you're pulled to and you have an affinity for it, don't seek external validation, because you'll always be pulled back to, breaking down what you can do based on what other people think. And it should be based on you trying to be better than yourself every other day. It's not about comparing to anyone else. It's not about looking for people's opinions of how good or how bad you are. It's about being honest with yourself and just making a step towards that goal every single day, no matter how big that step is, no matter how small that step is. Make a step every single day. That's the one thing I'll say to anyone. And just don't allow yourself to become, um, pulled towards the validation of others. It should never be about that. Because at the end of the day, this is your life. You're here for you. And if you're too wrapped up in what other people think or what other people's opinions are, that doesn't have a benefit to you, because those opinions will go away. But if you allow them to affect you, then it will pull you away from what your goal is. You carry on with your journey forward, you make your steps, and just let those voices just fall away. That's the best advice I could probably give again.
Wonderful advice. Perfect. Thank you. And where can people find you if they would like to contact you and have any questions, or
I mean, if you're bored,
interested in coming to do martial arts with you or something?
if you want to contact me, there's Damien Ashley on Instagram. So my real name is Damien Pettit, but I use my middle name for my stage name, so it's Damien Ashley on Instagram. I've got a podcast which I haven't done for a while called the Gym Rat Pack on YouTube, with some wicked guys, good friends of mine, Larry on the Bammy World, like a brother to me, and Leon Rock. But yeah, that's what you can find.
Lovely. Well, Damien, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for being your true, authentic self. Really, though, all the love that you give to your son, to your partner, to everyone in life, just thank you for being you.